Warning: this podcast may be disturbing to some listeners. Due to the graphic nature, listener discretion is advised. Welcome from wherever you are. This is the Demon Inside podcast. I am your host, John Benham. If you would like to review another episode of the Demon Inside, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and any podcast platform. And please, don't forget to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars. A new episode will come out once a week. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. So I have a few shout outs that I need to get done. I've been procrastinating doing these shows, so I know they've been waiting for them. So first one was Jamara, who was actually going to Miami on the 18th of last month, which was May. And we're already in June, so you see how far along I've already gone. But Jamara was going to Florida, and she told me that we started talking about my show. And, you know, when somebody mentions Florida, they're going to hear about my show. So this is her shout-out. Then I want to send a shout-out to Naya. Naya is a girl that I picked up from a smoke shop and took her home, and it was thunderstorming really bad. I mean, the lightning was incredible, though. And I think we were more excited than scared with the lightning. And she actually shared with me that she has a lightning tattoo on the side of her body. Of course, I didn't see it, but that's, you know, it was kind of cool because I got to ride with somebody that wasn't scared of the lightning. So this is Naya's shout out. And then I have Sarah Jo, which is a bartendress / model. And guys, I'm telling you, she is very beautiful. She deserves to be a model. And very sweet, very nice person. And we started talking about the show. And so I told her that I would send her out a shout out. But before all that happened, we were actually talking about life in general and dating, and she started laughing because she called a lot of the stuff that people do during the dating is called a trauma dump. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. Basically, it's all the drama that people bring into a relationship. And then, but this is Sarah Jo's shout out. Then I have Lucas and Shannon. Now, Lucas, I met. Lucas actually drove into my property where I do security on his motorcycle, and it freaked me out. Now, most of you know that whenever I do shout-outs, it's usually for people that I meet doing Uber or just, you know, in casual conversation. But with Lucas, I almost hit his bike or his motorcycle with my car because I thought he was coming in to do damage or steal something or, you know, I don't know what. But he was illegally on property. And thank God I didn't do anything stupid because we started talking. He explained why he was here, which he had a legitimate reason. They just hadn't told me yet. But we started talking about my podcast, and he asked me to do the shout out for him and his wife or girlfriend, I can't remember, but her name's Shannon. And what's funny is that we have a few Shannons that listen to this show. So this is for Lucas and Shannon. And last but not least, so like I said, I work security for World Car Center, and World Car Center has a lot of different properties, and I actually do security at 2 of them. So at the Kia, there's a guy, his name is Rob, very nice guy. He's director of finance, great guy. I've been promising him a shout out, him and his daughter. Now, his daughter doesn't work at Kia, but she does come to pick him up sometimes because he lends her the car. And it's so neat to see a daughter and her father being so close. It reminds me of me with my daughters. And so what I ended up doing with them is I kept telling her, hey, remind me, because her name is Mikala. I can't say it. Micaela or something. And the thing is, okay, and I don't mean to be like rude or anything, but since I can't say it, I recorded her saying it. So I'm going to play that right now. I'm going to record. This is Rob, her dad, and this is her name. Listen to this.
Rob and Micaela.
Now, I told her dad I was going to use this, but I didn't tell her. So I'm hoping that she'll get a kick out of this. And she's actually on my podcast now. So, all right, let's get back to the show, guys.
My daughter, 6-year-old daughter, is dead.
A holiday horror, 4 killed, including a 6-year-old girl just days before her birthday.
I don't know how we're ever going to recover.
A Jupiter family still in shock as a manhunt continues for the killer. Good morning, I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
And I'm Lauren Lapanzina. This is a story we have been following since 10 o'clock last night, throughout the night, and into the early morning.
Tim Malloy joins us now from the Breaking News Center with the new developments over the past few hours, plus courageous father and News Channel 5 employee Jim Sitton speaking out about his daughter. Tim.
Marcia, at this hour, a massive manhunt is underway for an invited guest who left a Thanksgiving celebration, then burst back in with a gun in his hand and proceeded to murder 4 people. One of them, the beloved daughter of a News Channel 5 employee. This explosion of violence took place in an upscale community on Villa Veracruz as the Thanksgiving holiday was winding down. Our Carolyn Schofield is there and has the very latest on the tragedy. Carolyn.
Tim, police at this hour are still looking for the suspected shooter. He is 35-year-old Paul Michael Merhige. Now, investigators say he shot and killed 4 of his family members, and he is still on the run at this hour. Now, this Merhige was having Thanksgiving dinner here at a home on Villa Veracruz in Jupiter. He was the invited guest and a relative of our News Channel 5 photographer Jim Sitton and his wife Muriel. Now, around 10 o'clock last night, police say Merhige took out a gun and he began shooting. There were 17 people in the home at the time, and they desperately tried to get out of the way. 4 people couldn't. 76-year-old Ramon Joseph, the suspect's aunt, his twin sisters, Carla and Lisa Merhige, both 33 years old, and 6-year-old Micaela Sitton, who was sleeping in her bedroom. All 4 of those people were killed. Now, police say Paul Michael Merhige then took off, and here is what they're looking for at this hour this morning. Jupiter police say Merhige is driving a 2007 4-door blue Toyota Camry with the Florida tag W427JT. Merhige could still be in the area, but he is from Miami, and investigators down there are also on high alert. Now, neighbors described the heartbreaking scene he left behind.
We're very shocked, and we just can't get over the whole fact that this happened. The people were very religious people, very beautiful people. It just was something that happened. It wasn't an intruder, it was a family member.
And let's show you that information again. Paul Michael Merhige is who investigators are looking for. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous. He left the house here in Jupiter in a 2007 4-door blue Toyota Camry with the Florida tag W427JT. If you have any idea of his whereabouts, you're asked to call 911. Now, the American Red Cross is out here to help fuel and feed the police officers who have been here since 10 o'clock last night. They will also be putting up 6 people who were involved in this shooting. They'll be putting them up in hotels outside the area for the next few days. And again, as we mentioned before, 2 of the people who are suffering from this morning are photographer Jim Sitton and his wife Muriel, who lost their 6-year-old daughter in this. Back to you, Tim.
Hello, my Demon Insiders, and welcome back to the Demon Inside. I'm your host, John Venom, and today we are going to be talking about the Demon Inside Paul Michael Merhige. So Paul was born in September of 1974, and his parents pretty much, they were wealthy, they were well off, and Paul actually went to a private school where he was in sports. He played soccer, football, baseball. He was actually in the French club. He was in the Honor Society. This school was Gulliver Prep, and there was people there that remember Paul. For instance, like his old coach from football, who says, and this is Bob Schweed, Paul's football coach, and he says, and I quote, "I thought he'd be running a company or a business, something like that. Paul pushed himself hard. He was a kicker, and kicking is a specialty, not something that would be taught in practice. So he practiced on his own," end quote. So Paul was a very outgoing, smart, athletic person, and he was very family oriented, even as a teenager, which is pretty weird because most of us as teenagers, we don't really think of our family as much as Paul did. And the only reason I say all this is because in high school, they gave a yearbook page to different students. I guess they paid for it or something. And he actually dedicated the whole page to his family. Now, I'm going to read it because I haven't really seen it anywhere else. So I'm going to let you know what he said on this, just to kind of give you a frame of mind of who we're talking about. So he put Paul marriage, and there's pictures of him as a kid, and there's pictures of his sisters and his mom and dad. And he puts, "Mom and Dad, thank you for all that you have given me, the support, love, encouragement, and advice through good and rough times. You have put up with summer conventions, parties, dances, Congress, and especially the girls. You have provided me with all the tenderness and caring so a young boy could develop into a mature, young, spirited, and vivacious man, filled with the desire to experience life to the fullest and cherish all that it has to offer. I can only hope to be as loving a parent to my children someday. You have sacrificed yourselves and your lives to give me the best education at Gulliver, support through all the years of sports, but most of all, to instill in and bestow upon me the morals and values with which to treat others. You have given up everything so that I can succeed in what I do and in what is yet to come. For I would not have reached the stage in my life where I am now. Lisa and Carla, I have been so lucky to be blessed with having twin sisters and being your protective older brother. We may fight a lot, but that is only because we love each other so much and would not trade it for the world. We show our affection with each other in a funny way. You both have been there for me when I needed someone to listen. We have shared a lot of great experiences together through the years, and it has shown me not to take advantage of the love of two beautiful sisters such as you. Thanks to my two grandmothers, grandfather, aunts, and uncles, my cousins, all 32 of us in the family, for all the support, strength, and courage to seek all that lies ahead. I love you now and will forever," end quote. Now, that was in his high school senior year, in his yearbook, and he dedicated, like I said, the whole page to his family, which was very nice. But how do you go from that to killing members of your family? Well, we're going to get into that. So after he graduated high school with honors, he attended the University of Miami. He wanted to become a doctor. And from 92 to 93, he was a freshman, and he was on the Honor Students Association. Well, according to his mother, she said that he had a nervous breakdown at 19. And he battled severe depression and obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, he would, and this was one of his effects to the obsessive compulsive, where he would start to take a bath like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times a day. He started shaving all his hair. He had struggles to make decisions. Then he started developing an obsession with death. And he had a fear of blood and a fixation on common germs. So, in other words, whenever he felt like he was dirty, he had to take a shower because he felt like things were crawling on him. And this led to him taking long showers, hours of showers. And it started to create a ritual for him. And he refused to wear like short sleeve shirts, short pants. Sorry about that. Because, like I said, he was starting to feel like these germs were getting all over him. So by the age of 20, Paul dropped out of school and he became completely dependent on his parents. And his mom and dad supported him. His sisters supported him. But he started to isolate himself from everybody. I mean, they had his own room, and, you know, his parents were trying to be very supportive of him. But Paul first wouldn't seek help. And there was pills that when he did go, or when they did take him to seek help, he had stopped taking. And we've talked about that before, where you cannot stop taking your medications because it really does throw you off. So the more he isolated himself, the more that he started fixating on his sisters, his twin sisters, who were 2 years younger, and he started seeing how good their life was. And why couldn't his life be like that? So eventually it gets to the point where he starts fixating on his sister's happiness as his sadness, and it's their fault that he's sad because they're successful. So he starts to threaten his sister, one of his sisters. He threatened to like slit her neck. And this was it for the parents, because the parents were kind of like fed up with it already. Because we're talking, he was 20 at the time that he started, and we're talking a few years later, and she actually filed a domestic violence charge against him. And because of that, they ended up moving him out of the house. Now, his parents, still being the loving and protective parents that they are, actually rented him a condo. So they moved him into the condo, which just isolated him even more. But one of the sister that he wanted to assault, she ended up dropping the charges. Now, while he was at the condo, he tried to kill himself several times by overdosing on pills. He tried shooting himself in the chest, but he didn't succeed, obviously. And so he kept being in his isolated cocoon. So now, after a period of time, his relationship with his family had really become less and less and less. We're talking, there was several years in between where they hadn't seen him. Now, keep in mind, his parents were paying the bills and everything, but it wasn't like they would go to his apartment or he would come over. They would just pay the bills, and he was just living as long as he wasn't really interfering with anything from the family. And that includes Christmases and Thanksgivings and all these holidays and birthdays and things like that. But in 2009, on Thanksgiving Day, which was November 26th, Paul's family was celebrating, and they went to the cousin-in-law's house, who lived in Jupiter, Florida. And that's a very important thing to remember. Now, right now, Paul, his condo is actually in Miami. I need you to remember these two locations because these two locations are very important for the next 4 episodes. I just want to tell you right now, these next 4 episodes are combined into one. And these 4 episodes, these 4 different people, it's going to show you a pattern that I didn't even know existed until recently. And it is going to blow your mind, I swear to you. So bear with me, okay? We're still talking about Paul though. So, like I said, Thanksgiving came around and Paul called his dad and his mom and asked where they were going to spend Thanksgiving. And they had told him, and they didn't think he would show up. Then all of a sudden, he says that he's going to go. Keep in mind, he drove 55 miles from his home in Miami to his cousin's house in Jupiter, Florida, which is, like I said, 55 minutes or 55 miles away. And here's the weird part, okay? And this is kind of weird. And maybe sometimes when you hear somebody say that you need to listen to that little voice in your head, you really should listen to that little voice in your head. When Paul's mom and his sister found out that Paul was actually going to come, Carol, his mom, says this, and I quote, "I hope he doesn't come and kill us all tonight," end quote. She told that to her daughter. Her daughter said, and I quote, "Mom, it came to my mind, but don't say that to Dad because Dad could get upset that we had such ideas," end quote. Maybe if they would have followed that little hint, maybe this could have been avoided. So, an hour and a half goes by and Paul shows up. And his cousins didn't even know he was coming. But his family, I mean, they hadn't seen him in a few years. And he seemed okay. He made conversation like everybody. There was no arguing. There was no fighting. There was no nothing. Paul sat down to eat Thanksgiving dinner with his family, but he didn't eat anything. Other than that, there was no warning signs, no red flags, no nothing. Now, the cousins have a 6-year-old daughter, and this little girl is the shining light. And her birthday was coming up in a few weeks, and she was going to be in a Christmas pageant, which was coming up in a few days. And so after they finished eating, they started playing songs, Christmas songs on the piano, while she showed them how she was going to dance in the pageant. After all this was said and done, this was about 10 p.m., they put her to bed. And nobody's thinking anything. Everybody's pretty much thinking this whole dinner went well. Everything went well. This is when Paul steps out of the house, goes to his car, grabs a gun, comes walking back in. He shoots his aunt, who is 76 years old. He shoots her once in the shoulder, and then as her husband was trying to help her to stop the bleeding, he held the gun to her chest and fired again. He blew a hole straight through her sternum. Now her husband said that after he did that, Paul pointed the gun at him and tried to shoot him twice, but the gun jammed. So then Paul unjammed the gun the second time and walked off and shot his twin sisters. Now, one of his twin sisters was pregnant at the time. and he killed both of them. He also shot 2 other people in the household, but those 2 survived. Now, the worst one is the little girl, Michaela. And I'm saying her name because she should never be forgotten. And I know I never say the victims' names, or I try not to, unless it's pertinent to the story. But this little girl was such a ray of sunshine. She believed in God. She prayed. She was very spiritual as a little girl, 6-year-old. And just like every kid, hopeful. This guy goes to her room, opens the door, shoots at her while she's sleeping, steps out of the room, looks back, steps back into the room, and shoots her 4 more times. As he's walking away from the room, he says, and I quote, this is Paul, says, "I've been waiting 20 years to do this," end quote. Now, one of the survivors that was a relative said that Paul's face looked evil and haunting. Now, I'm not going to deny that Paul didn't have mental disorders before this happened, but we have talked about when these demons attach themselves to somebody that's sick to make them do what the demon wants. Now, after Paul killed the little girl, he left. He actually went into hiding, and he went all the way to the Keys, Florida Keys, where he was hiding for a month before they actually caught him and brought him in. Now, while he was there at the hotel where he was staying, the police said that when they broke into the door, he looked dazed, he looked confused, he didn't know what was going on. And this is what he said, and I'm going to quote him on this. Listen to this. Paul said this: "It's impossible, to reconcile what happened with me. It's not even real. I'm not violent. I've never been violent. I'm not a criminal or a drug addict. It's just unbelievable what I've done to everybody," end quote. Now, I usually don't read a lot of the what psychologists. I mean, I try to read what psychologists say, but for my purposes, I usually don't. But you know what? This was very interesting to me, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to share it with you. There's a Dr. Alexander, who's Stephen Alexander, and he's a practicing psychologist, chief psychologist for Palm Beach Circuit Court. And he says that it starts with a slight, real, or perceived. Perhaps after the breakdown, Paul was jealous of his sister's success. Perhaps he felt like a failure and needed someone to blame. Perhaps it was something else entirely. Whatever it was likely something, and that became a slight, and that slight became resentment, and that resentment became rage. Now, if marriage has OCD, or even as a profile by the U.S. Marshal Service implies, he merely thinks he does, that would give him an excuse to revisit those feelings, to turn them over in his mind. Over time, the bitterness and unhappiness and bad feelings would crystallize. Now, that's what Dr. Alexander says. And he also brings up, and I found this, and you guys are going to freak out on this one too. Paul's aunt, who was a opera singer. Her name was Sawa Merhige Abrams. This woman had a family. Her husband cheated on her. He broke up with her. She was devastated, of course. This was back in 1973. And she started to build up her own life. And then all of a sudden, she decided, she got a gun, She shoots her ex-husband, and then she shoots her 2 kids. And then she takes pills to kill herself, in which she took 4 days before she actually succumbed to her pills. Now, this was his aunt. I know that a lot of people have talked about like evil curses, let's say. And could this be an evil curse that went down from generation to generation? It could be. But here's the thing that I found striking, and here's where we go down the rabbit hole, guys, because this has really been bugging the crap out of me. Now, Paul's incident happened in 2009, and Paul lived in Miami, and I found his address, and I won't share that with you, but please take my word for it. He lives 6 minutes away from where Rudy Eugene attacked Ronald Popple. Now, remember, Rudy Eugene was a face biter from Miami that they said was on bath salts, which we definitely don't think it was bath salts. I know it wasn't. But this was in 2009. This was several years before that happened. What I'm going to do in these next 3 episodes is I'm going to show you a pattern where it takes you from Miami all the way up the shoreline, all the way to where Austin Harroff bit the face off of somebody. And then it's going to take us all the way across and end with Matthew Bernard in Virginia. I know this sounds weird, okay? But right now, and I'll explain everything on the last episode, but right now, we're looking for the demon that shoots the family and then tries to commit suicide. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. But this is the first of a few that I'm going to take you through that I think is a pattern. So you're going to want to stick around for the next 3 shows, guys, because this is really going to go down the rabbit hole. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll talk to you all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Demon Inside podcast on any podcast platform. A new episode of the Demon Inside will be released every week. Let us know what you think of the episode on all our social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments, go to the Demon Inside podcast at gmail.com or click on the link down below. We would love to hear from you. And to become a Demon Insider, go to our website, thedemoninsidepodcast.com. We thank you for listening and hope you will join us next week for a new Demon Inside podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends. I am John Venom, and I'll see you next time, if I don't get possessed. The Demon Inside was written and created by James Porter. It is a production of Venomous Entertainment. Background music is by Lucas King.